Hi all. Hope you all are doing good. All right. Now that we have understood why do we need lead code problems to be solved, and we have seen how to set up the data before we start solving the problems, right? So let's begin with our first uh, program from LeetCode, where we'll try to learn how we'll solve the problem using DataFrame and Spark SQL, right? So as you can see in the screen, right, we have this question from LeetCode only. Like the question number is this one, and find the users with valid email ID, right? This is the problem statement that we are trying to solve in this video. And let me show you how did I get this question, from where did I get it, right? So now if you go to the LeetCode, right? If you come to databases, right? Let's search for the question number, right? 1517, right? So let's search for 1517. Right, here is the question. So whatever the question that we are seeing it here, right? It's the same question that I explained it there. Okay. This is the same question that we are trying to solve now. And we'll be, at the end of this video, we'll be writing the code where we can run the code in Databricks that I've already opened. Okay. And the same SQL code that will be running it here as well. So that we'll get a confirmation that okay, whatever code that we have written in the PySpark is going to be running in the relational database as well. We'll see how we can do that, right? So let's try to understand what is the question first of all, right? So here the problem statement is we are trying to find out the valid email IDs from the table that is given. So if you see here, right? So in the left hand side, we have the table schema that is being defined, but since we are going to write the PySpark program, we do not need this schema. We are not going to create any table, but we'll see how we can register those tables using DataFrame and all that, right? So this is not much important for us. We are not going to create any primary key, foreign key, and all that. But yeah, so this is the structure that is associated with the data set that we will be using for our practice. Okay, and here is the question description. What we are going to we are trying to solve, and here is the input data that will be giving, and here is the expected output that we are expecting, and here is the explanation of the data set that we have, right? So this is how this is what we are trying to solve in this particular video, right? So now, so let's try to understand the question, right? So here we have a set of data that we'll be taking, which is exactly the same way that it's given in the LeetCode. I have not done anything on my own here. The question is from basically LeetCode, right? So this is the question that we are trying to solve, right? So now, so here we are trying to find out the valid email IDs. Okay, though it is a very simple question just to start with, right? I have thought let's pick some random question and start from there. So we are just starting from here, right? So we'll be taking some sample data where we have user ID, name, and email IDs, right? So our main intention is we will just be filtering out those email IDs which is not valid, right? We just need only those email IDs where it is a valid email ID. And the criteria for that valid email ID is being described here, right? So you see, so the prefix we have in an email ID, we have prefix and we have the domain name, right? So the prefix name should be having this uppercase and lowercase, which starts with uppercase and lowercase. It should contain underscore. It should have a period, and it should have a dash, right? So this is the criteria that is given. Based on that, we are going to choose which one is a valid email ID or not, right? And it should be having a valid domain name. Here, in this case, we will be focusing on @leetcode.com. So whichever email ID that we will be taking, so out of them, whichever is a valid, we are going to consider those only, right? So if you see here in this sample data set that is given, right? So if you see here, we do not have any domain. So it is not a valid email ID, right? Similarly, if you see on this one, right? So we have a hash, which is not a valid email ID. even though we have a domain here, we do not, I mean, has is included here, but as a part of the rule given by the question, right? It should not be a part of your prefix name, right? So this is also a invalid email ID as per the rule given by the question, right? So then if you see on this one, right, we have a Gmail ID, but our question asks us to solve the, I mean, just pick those email IDs where we have the domain name as LeetCode only. But since we have Gmail, as per our criteria, it is not meeting, so it's not a valid email ID as per our criteria, right? So now that you see, this email ID starts with a dot, which is also not a valid based on this criteria, right? It should start with the upper or lowercase. That's what it mentioned here. So now that you have understood the data, what we are trying to filter, and this is the output we are expecting. So now it's time to see the program, right? So let's go to here. Like I have opened one workspace, workbook, right? Notebook. So where we'll be writing the code. Okay. So let me get the code. So in this code, if you try to see, right? So we have 3 sections here. This is a pattern that will be following across the series, right? So if you see this portion, like this first part, we are going to set up the data, sample data, right? Whatever sample data that is given in the question, we are just going to set up the sample data. In the second section, we'll be focusing on how do we solve the problem using Spark SQL. Okay. In the third section, we'll be having how we can solve it using DataFrame API, right? So this three, first of all, we need to set the data. Then we'll explore using our Spark SQL approach. Then we'll check it using our DataFrame approach, right? So let's start. I will copy this code and we'll explain it there. Right? So let me copy this. So we are just trying to set up the data, sample data, which is given in the question first, right? So I've just copy pasted it here. So now you see, so we are just trying to solve this LeetCode problem, right? Where we are trying to find a valid email ID, right? So as always, right, print statement, it's your wish if you wanted to write or not. But in order to set up that data frame, right, we need to be having schema and functions that needs to be imported from PySpark libraries, right? So here we are importing the column function, which you'll be using for going forward in this example. Okay, this is a function, call function that we are importing, and these are all the Python types that we are importing in order to define the data frame schema and perform data frame operation, right? So here we are importing all these needed functions and types. Here the same data that is given in the slide, right? Same data set that we have taken here. Okay, here it's a Python list of collection of tuples, if you see, right? And this is going to be considered as one record in the data frame, right? All this is a list of tuples here, right? So hope you know all this, right? So this is the user data that we are going to set up. Okay, and this is a schema that we are building based on the schema that is given here, right? We are taking the same schema here. We are going to attach to this data frame, right? So if you see, user ID is the integer type, and name is a string type, and mail is also a string type based on the data that we have taken. Okay, and this data is exactly same as given in the LeetCode, right? So if you see, the data is exactly same that we are taking, right? Same data only we are taking, right? So, and we are, since this is going to be the primary key, we are not allowing the nulls here, so it is false here, right? So we are creating the schema here, we are building a schema here, right? Now we are just creating a data frame using those two schema and the data that we have taken, right? If you see, we have defined this schema here, right? You see, we have defined this data and we have defined the schema here. Okay. Taking that, we are going to create a data frame where it will be structural tabular format, right? We'll get it once we get the data, as we know, right? So we are just going to create a data frame here, and we are going to register the data frame, right, as a table, right? We are going to create a temporary view first of all, right? So this is mainly part of the setting of data. Once we progress on the series, right, we will not be explaining all this in detail because this is going to be stereotypic same format that we will be following, right? So we just need to understand it once, like, okay, we are just going to set up the data before we start uh, practicing the real problem, right? So here we are creating a data frame. Here we are creating uh, a table which we can use to query it as a table, right? So what we have done so far is like we have just imported this uh, functions and libraries, I mean functions and types from the libraries, and we have taken the sample data, we have created a schema, okay, and we have created a data frame here, and we have created a Spark table, right? So let's run this one and see. Okay, we should get, okay, I think it's not this. Let's attach this one, right? This compute might take some time, right? So yeah, once it starts, right, the compute has started now. So let's run this one and see, right? Yeah. So this is our sample data which we wanted to take it for the problem solving, right? So we are just set up with the sample data which we wanted to process, right? So if you see here, we are done with this step. So our sample data is ready now, right? So now what we'll be doing, we'll be trying to solve the problem using Spark SQL first, right? So let me just this one. Now we are second step. What I need to do is let's copy paste this code. Let's get it there, right? Okay, so let's copy pasting it here. Okay, so let's try to understand what we are trying to do it here, right? So simply we are doing a print statement, and here we are trying to select those records, right, where we have a valid email ID. Okay, so we are just taking all those here. Okay, so let's understand, okay, what it is first of all, right? It's a variable, right? Why this three quotes is given, right? It's a multi-line Python string for SQL queries, right? So whenever we are having a query in multiple lines, right, in order to treat them as a single set of code, right, we are going to use the single string. I mean, three quotes, right? And what is regex that we have used here, right? So if you see here, right, so we are using a regex, right? And we'll try to understand what are all those records that is meeting this criteria. We are trying to select those records only, right? So simply here we are selecting those records where our mail ID is meeting a criteria, right? So regex is used to match the text against the regular expression, right? So we are trying to see whether we are each record that will be queried, right? If it is meeting this set of regular expression criteria, we are going to fetch those records, right? So we'll understand in details. Let me just run this one first and we'll see whether we are getting the output or not, right? So you see, we are getting those email IDs where it is a valid email ID. Now, if you see, all those are being filtered out, right? Invalid email IDs are we are not getting now. we are getting the expected output using this one, right? So now let's try to understand what is this regex, how it works, right? So what we have given it here, right? So if you see here, right? So basically this cap tells that, okay, the string should start from, it mentions that it should be starting of the string, and it should like where A to Z and A to Z, it mentions, right? If you go to the question, it is mentioned that, right? So the prefix name in the string may contain letters upper and lowercase. It should start from a uppercase or lowercase letter, right? If you see, it should start from upper and lowercase letter. Then what it is, it should have underscore. It may contain underscore, dot, or dash, right? Based on that, we have mentioned that, okay. You see, we have A to Z, lowercase, any digits, dot, underscore, and all that we have mentioned based on the criteria given, right? So, and it should have a valid email ID, right? If you go to the question, here we have, it should have a valid email ID, right? So based on that, so regex is basically used to match the text against the data, right? Now we have seen, like, we are getting the expected output here. So I have one diagram created for this one where we can really remember, okay, how it works, that regex, right? So what is regex here, first of all, right? So a regex is a SQL operator that checks whether a column is a value is matching a regular expression or not, right? So that's what we have seen, right? So we have seen it, like how we can get the solution using PySpark, though it is a very simple thing, right? We have started from an easy one, right? So we have seen the output, we got it, right? So now we'll be seeing like how we can get that same thing being done using DataFrame API, right? Because that is the most expected thing that will get it in interviews, right? So I just copy paste. Minimize this one, create a new one. Just going to, okay. So here, same way we're just printing something, right? And this is the data frame way of writing the code, right? We should be having this style of coding handy because in interviews we will be getting questions on this only, right? So we should be having a hands-on on like how we can do the code using a data frame style, right? So no doubt we'll be using mostly PySpark, I mean SQL style of coding in real time, but in interviews they will expect you to write the code in a data frame style, right? So we should be also having some hands-on on this one in order to crack interviews, right? So this is the same problem, like we are not doing anything extra, but this is the data frame way of writing the code, right? PySpark code. So here we are defining a variable. So like if you see here, we are taking a column where we have the mail ID, right? If you remember, we have taken this sample data, right? See here, we have the sample data here. We have a mail ID as a column name. So that we are mentioning, and that should contain like whatever that we are getting in that email ID, right? It should be what is R like, right? R like, if you see, R like checks whether a column value matches a specific regular expression or pattern, right? It is the same as regexp, but in data frame we have a function that is our R like, and we are using the same pattern that we have used in the Spark SQL. Okay. And what is R here, right? R denotes a raw string, preventing Python from interpreting backslashes and escapes character. If you see, this is a backslash, right? So for that it is used, right? So we are just trying to filter that record where it is matching this criteria, right? Now we have set the email condition, like it's a valid email condition that we have set it here. And from the main data frame, right, we are just going to filter that which is a valid email ID, and we are going to get that as output, right? Here we have made it as truncate as false, so that none of the data will get truncated, right? So simply we have created a filter condition, and we have stored all the data. We have taken all those email IDs which meets this criteria. We have stored it there, and from this data frame that we have created above, right? We have created data frame here. Above, right? Here we have created this user data frame. The same data frame we are using it there. Okay. So on top of the data frame, which has all these values, right? If you see, this data frame has all these valid and invalid emails address, right? But here, if you see, we are just trying to take only those email IDs where we have the valid email condition, right? So we are just filtering out those records from there, and we are trying to show them. Let's run this program and see now. You see, we are just getting the same output what we are expecting, right? It is just picking those valid email IDs only, right? So what we have seen, like right here, so we have created the data frame first. We have set up the data based on the question that is given here, right? Based on that, we have set up the data first using. There is a reason why I have not taken. I mean, we could have written it simple SQLs, right? But why we are doing all this, right? So since we are trying to attend PySpark interviews, right? So this kind of stuffs will be expected. Okay, you will not be given the simple table and write a select query there, right? So you need to understand, okay, how this PySpark way of writing the code, right? So those who have experience on this one, they will be able to relate it. But those who are new, that I'm spending a little more time on this initial examples because we need to understand what we're trying to do. For those who know it already, I think it's nothing for them. But you should understand who is beginner and who is not acquainted with this way of writing the code, right? So we have set up the data. Then we have seen like how it's a simple SQL query that we have written, and we have got the expected output with the valid email IDs using Spark SQL style, and we have seen like how you can write the same code using DataFrame style, right? So which is most expected thing in the interview, right? So now, and we have got the same output also we have seen. So now that we have seen it already using this in the data frame, I mean, in the Databricks cluster, we'll just try to validate, okay, whatever SQL that we have written, whether it is going to work in this LeetCode platform or not. Because our intention is the same way we are trying to learn SQL, PySpark SQL, and the same way data frame, right? So, but still we'll be verifying, okay, whether this code is going to run perfectly fine in the LeetCode or not, right? So I'm going to just LeetCode platform, and this is a question already open, right? So I'm just going to copy paste the code. We'll just try to run it, right? So if the SQL engine that we are choosing is right one, and if that is supported with this particular this syntax, if it is supported with that particular database, right, it's going to run fine, or else it will throw error. But the conceptually it is all same. Wherever you are running the code, concept doesn't change, right? So now if you run this one, it should ideally success. Right, you see, it is accepted and we are getting the same output. This is our source data and it is our output data, and this is the expected one. So same thing, we have got it here as well, right? So our intention is to learn PySpark and attend interviews, right? So for that it is useful, and we'll be coming up with medium and hard questions, right? If you go here, we'll be having medium and hard questions, right? So we'll be solving all of them, okay, one by one. And the approach is going to be similar. Like we'll be creating a data frame. I mean, we'll be setting up the data. We'll see how we can write the same thing in Spark SQL. We will solve the problem using Spark SQL. Then we'll be using our data frame style of writing the same code, and we'll be finally validating, okay, the same Spark SQL is being running in our LeetCode or not, just to validate, okay, it is exactly the same way it behaves as a relational database. When you work with it behaves the same way, because the concept remains same whether you work in a relational database or you work in a distributed computing platform like PySpark, right? So I hope you all got it. We'll be coming off with more videos on this, and yeah, that's all right. So we'll see you in the next video. Thank you all.